Hey everyone, Quissy here, and in this video I want to recap what we learned from the Reddit developer AMA yesterday by highlighting the key points. Also, I'm going to be discussing all of this on my live stream tonight on Twitch at twitch.tv/QuissyTV, so I hope to see you all there and we can continue this discussion live. Let's get started on the first of the Reddit recap that we learned. So there's some major key points I found super interesting in the Reddit AMA. If you want to read up on a full summary, I highly recommend you check out classic.wowhead.com, where Perculia did an excellent job at covering and summarizing the event. Link is in the description below. So the first thing I want to cover is the clarification on raid reset days. Again, I'm using Wowhead as a reference here, but to summarize, the reset schedule will work just as it did in the vanilla World of Warcraft infrastructure. So let's take a look at the list below. Molten Core is on a 7-day lockout. The reset day is Tuesday for NA and Wednesday for EU. Same thing with Blackwing Lair, 7 days, Tuesday NA, Wednesday EU. On Kiraj, 40. And Naxxramas as well, 7 days, resets Tuesday for North America, Wednesday for Europe. Now here's where it gets a little bit different. We've got Onyxia's Lair, resets every 5 days. And the reset day obviously will vary, depending if you're NA, EU, every 5 days, basically. And then finally, Zul'Gurub and AQ20, the Ruins of An-Kiraj, those reset every 3 days. Just like Onyxia's Lair, the reset day will vary because it's every 3 days. So you can technically get Zul'Gurub and AQ20 done twice in the duration of a Molten Core or BWL or AQ40 or Nax lockout, which is pretty interesting. But I mean, I can't say I'm entirely surprised by this. It's how it was in the past, and if they were to change something like this, it really wouldn't make much sense to me. This raid schedule was, by the way, first implemented in patch 1.9 for those who are interested. And for those of you who think it'll be confusing and hard to keep track of, a simple /raid info will help you keep track of all of that information. Okay, moving on to dungeon caps. So since we're on the topic of raiding, dungeons are along the same topic here, and in the Reddit AMA, Blizzard confirmed that player caps for classic dungeons will remain as they were in patch 1.12. And you can see here in the screenshot, many of the lower level dungeons have a player cap of 10, but you can see some of the higher level ones, Blackrock Depths, Stratholme, Skullomance, are all capped at 5. Blackrock Spire used to have a cap of 15, but it was lowered to 10 in later patches. So some people might ask, why not just bring 10 people instead of 5 to make all these dungeons easier? And sure, you could bring 10 people to make the runs a little bit quicker and easier, but there are a few factors here as to why you may just want to bring 5. You can't complete most dungeon quests in a raid group, unless the quest is specifically marked as a raid quest. So if you're there to get XP, complete some quests, you're probably going to want to stick to a 5-man group. Also, the distribution of loot is something to take into consideration. With less people, it's easier for you to get a piece that you're looking for. With double the people there may be less of a chance for you to get the item that you're looking for. So those are the two main factors that stick out for me, personally. The pros and cons are just taking 5 people versus 10-man into some of these dungeons. And on the topic of dungeons and raids, the AMA clarified how loot will appear through each phase. So in short, all final tables of loot from 1.12 will be available in Phase 1 Molten Core. For example, although items such as the Obsidian Edge Blade and Onslaught Girdle were added in later patches, they will be available in Phase 1 of Classic. This is to help reduce confusion among both players and devs to keep track of various gear, updating their stats and whatnot. So I can't really blame them for this. That being said, they also clarified that bindings of the Windseeker from either Gar or Baron Geddon in Molten Core, which, as you guys all know, you collect both bindings of the Windseeker and you can create Thunderfury with a few other crafting materials, of course. That leads me on to the next point, which is the problem is Thunderfury won't be able to be crafted in Phase 1, because it needs to have enchanted elementium ore from Blackwing Lair, and obviously that won't be out in Phase 1. So we won't be seeing Thunderfuries in Phase 1. I actually wrote a Wowhead guide and a video on how to craft Thunderfury in Classic, so if you're interested, I left the link in the description below. They also clarified that quest hubs that were added in later patches, such as Thorium Point and Jintha'alor, will be available in Phase 1. Cenarian Hold and such corresponding areas in Silithus, however, won't be available until Phase 5 with the AQ Gate opening content. So I saw some people follow up with questions like, since Thorium Point quests will be available, does that mean the Thorium Brotherhood rep will also be available? I don't see why not. This is pretty big considering you could craft really nice fire resistance gear from Loktos Dark Bargainer in the Grim Guzzler of Blackrock Depths, with different tiers of Thorium Brotherhood rep, which will surely help you out in raids that require fire resistance, such as Molten Core, Blackwing Lair, Onyxia, etc., etc. Also, a quick note was that certain catch-up gear that was originally added in patch 1.10 won't be added to the game until Phase 5. And there's a bit more clarification on layering. So lead software engineer Pazarax had a detailed answer to a question trying to clear up some things about layering. In the post, he stated that they are committed to getting rid of layering after Phase 1, and only having one layer in Phase 2. Even stating that they think after the first few couple of days, after Classic launches, they won't need as many layers. They said they'll actively monitor layers as launch week progresses and reduce layers as necessary, making sure the world feels full. Which he addressed in regards to some people saying that cities felt empty because of different layers. He goes on to explain why they wouldn't use sharding versus layering. The technology is different and how WoW Classic just wouldn't work with sharding. He also said they seem to have fixed a bug where some players were being randomly teleported to different layers, whether during gameplay or after logging out, discussing a delay with being invited to a group and switching layers, and also, quote, "I'm pleased to say there's actually a separate, longer transfer delay following any PvP combat." So hopefully that'll clear up some questions and concerns that many people have had about layering. They also went over so many more things, a few topics worthy of mentioning. Someone had asked about the Onyxia loot trick, where people were saying you get Onyxia down to like 10%, and then half the raid Hearthstone's out, and this is kind of a trick where people could just farm her loot over and over again. But it was clarified that any player who attacks Onyxia, whether they are present or not for the kill, will get locked into the instance, so that Onyxia loot trick will not work. Some weeks the servers may not need to be taken down for maintenance was another thing they stated. Honor calculations will be worked into the modern infrastructure, and the game won't need to be down or reset for them to take place. I remember that in other expansions like Burning Crusade too. I remember staying up all night waiting for the daily heroic dungeons to reset, and then doing them immediately after they reset. Needed those badges. Holidays will reflect those that were in the game in 1.12, so suffice to say I'm pretty excited to see Halloween pretty soon. Kazakh has a hard leash in 1.12, but there are other bosses that do not in the open world, so that's definitely something to take note of. And another thing that was interesting to me, and I think this raised a few brows for other people, someone asked, what are their plans after Phase 6? And they answered, we've done most of the hard work by bringing back 1.12, so progressing to Burning Crusade would be a lot easier for us. Our plan is to identify everything we need to do should we ever decide to go this route. We want to be sensitive to the desires of our players. Some may want BC and some may not. We'll be following the Classic community closely to help determine what our next steps will be. So I found that to be super interesting and a pretty cool note to end this on. But those are some of the major key points that I found really interesting in the Reddit AMA. Again, if you want to read a full summary, I recommend you check out classic.wowhead.com, where Perculia did an amazing job covering the event. And again, I'm going to be discussing all of these topics, as well as the announcement of the Method World First Race on my stream tonight, and probably throughout the rest of the week, so don't forget to follow at twitch.tv/QuizzyTV. You could also follow me on Twitter for updates. QuizzyTV over there as well. If you like the video, feel free to let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the sub button to support my channel. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you soon.